Hello, friends. This is Dave Horowitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the ideal Debussy piano works. Well, this requires a little bit of qualification because I am talking about the ideal list of major Debussy piano works. First of all, because he wrote lots of piano music, and there are lots of little teeny snaggly things, and there's no point in finding fabulous, ultimate, incredible recordings of the little bitty sniggly things because they will be attached to fabulous, ultimate, incredible recordings of the larger things. So you'll get them. You'll just get them along the way. And some of them are really famous, like, for example, the deux arabesques, the two arabesques. Those are some of Debussy's most popular works, particularly among amateur pianists. But everyone does them. So you don't need to worry about finding just the arabesques. And besides, you're not going to go out and buy an entire record for like 5 minutes of music. It doesn't make any sense. So the way that we are doing this, just so you know, I have tried to come up with a series of recordings featuring different pianists for each series of works. And by that, I mean, for example, the Préludes, which come in two books, are going to be done by one pianist, and the Images, which come in two books, will also be done by one pianist, and everything else is its own category, so it's not a problem. And this way, we'll come up with a list that has no weak links, first and foremost, but that will also give you a good range of artistry in the music, a nice selection of different pianists, and also that makes sense discographically, because I don't want you running around buying tons and tons of records to find either little pieces or overlapping too much. There's going to be some overlap. It's inevitable. There's no way to get around it. But I want these things to make sense economically for you if you decide to go with my recommendations. And if you don't, you'll have a list of names that you can go out and explore on your own, and that will do you proud, no matter what you ultimately choose. Now, a little general observation about the music itself. Debussy's piano music is amazing. Debussy was the greatest composer for the piano after Chopin. I don't think there's any question about that, and I don't think there's really any dispute about that. He had a completely individual sense of piano sonority. You know, the famous line is he wanted the piano to sound like an instrument without hammers, which really isn't true because he wrote some really nice, poundy, barbaric piano music in places, but only in spots. And more to the point, his sense of sonority was coupled with a feeling for harmony that was equally extraordinary. And when you put the two together, you have, as with Chopin, an absolutely personal musical language that happened to express itself through the medium of the piano. Its colors, its sounds, its dynamics, the things that the piano does that nothing else does as well. Debussy was an absolute master. And whether you like his music or don't like his music, everybody sort of acknowledges that. With that in mind, let's start talking about, then, these works. First, I'm going to start, these are very roughly chronological, and I'm going to mention some names that you just got to know. First, we need to deal with the Suite Bergamasque. Now, some of you may wonder what a Bergamasque is. I sure as hell did. For years, I never looked it up. I didn't care. I knew there was like a piece called Masques and Bergamasques. I didn't know what either of them was. It didn't make any difference. It was nice music. The Suite Bergamasque contains, as its third movement, Clair de Lune, Moonlight, Debussy's most famous piano work, maybe his most famous work of any type, for any instrument. It is, of course, gorgeous, but the other three movements are actually sort of neoclassical, neo-baroque stylizations. There's a minuet. It ends with a passe-pied. You know, a passe-pied is a little quicky, perky dance. It's really a lovely, lovely work, and it happens to have in the middle of it Clair de Lune. So there you know. Now you know. And a Bergamasque, in case you're curious, is simply a dance from the Italian city of Bergamo. That's all it is. Bergamasque is the adjective that means from Bergamo, like a New Yorker or a nutmegger if you're from Connecticut, or an Alsatian if you're from Alsace. If you're from Bergamo, then what you've done, what you are, is a Bergamasque. Isn't that fascinating? So that's what a Bergamasque is. And why Debussy called it that, we have no idea. And what any of the music has anything to do with the town of Bergamo, we have no idea. And in fact, it has nothing. It simply means, in a general sense, when it's used this way, something dance-like. And so the person I recommend for the Sweet Bergamasque is Walter Gleseking. Now, you're going to hear his name a lot in your peregrinations through the world of Debussy's piano music. Walter Gleseking was, quite ironically, a German pianist and, an absolute confirmed Nazi who ironically became the great Debussy interpreter of his age. And that was the 1930s, 40s, 50s, in that area. And he lived long enough to record all the Debussy piano music, albeit in mono for the most part, maybe all of it, I'm not exactly sure. But you need to have something of his. Now, this is like the icon box, but his Debussy has been issued and reissued and reissued millions and millions of ways. It's sort of public domain-ish. It's probably all on YouTube by now. You should hear him do it. And if you get his sweet, I was going to say masks and Bergamasques, that's a different piece. If you get the Sweet Bergamasque by Debussy, you can also get him doing the two arabesques and a whole pile of small little Debussy treats, and you'll get a sense of what he was famous for, which was his extremely subtle, sensitive, soft, and lovely touch. Tone, touch, texture. That's what Debussy is all about. Touch. Feel the groove, touch. And Gleseking was the guy who set the standard in the mid-20th century. Now, since then, he's probably been surpassed in several different ways, but he still represents a standard of Debussy pianism that one cannot ignore. So let's start with Gleseking. It's a good place to start. The next piece is a small one, but I was chatting over the series with Jed Disler, the piano mogul to end all piano moguls, and the piano guy we at Classics Today turn to whenever we need something done that involves that instrument. And Jed knows piano music like no one else in the world knows piano music. And he said, you have to include L'Île Joyeuse, the happy island. And the reason is because it's a virtuosic, fun, independent work. It's about 5 minutes long, but it's a major work. And he's right. He's always right. Jed is always right. And when it comes to this stuff, and he told me what performance to stick in here, and who am I to argue? No way was I going to argue. It was Horowitz doing L'Île Joyeuse. And boy, it's some hot smoker of a performance. It's one of the few Debussy works that really is a sort of virtuoso vehicle in that Lisztian sense. And so if you want to just get L'Île Joyeuse, you can get it one little 5-minute track. You can get it by Horowitz. But as I said, you will probably find it popping up pretty regularly on some of these other discs as well. So after that, we have Pour le piano. Pour the piano, it just means for the piano. For the piano, whatever that means, for the piano. It's a wonderful, wonderful suite. And I love the title because it tells you nothing about its contents. I think that's fantastic. I like abstract Debussy. And my choice for Pour le piano is Bavouzet. I love this guy, Jean-Ephraim Bavouzet on Chandos. Now, he's done all the Debussy piano music. In fact, he's done more than all the Debussy piano music because he's done all the stuff that Debussy transcribed for piano that was not originally piano music. So this is a 5-disc set with that's really top quality. Top quality all the way through, soup to nuts. You can get anything Bavouzet did in Debussy and be extremely happy and know that you're getting very, very high quality stuff. And so Pour le piano is here both for itself and as a representative sample of what Bavouzet did in Debussy. And this disc, by the way, the one that has Pour le piano, also gives you the Images oubliées, the forgotten images, which I wouldn't otherwise be discussing, and a whole bunch of short little pieces, and the Estampes, the sketches. It's spelled Estampes, Estampes, but like everything in French, you just don't pronounce half of the vowels. It's kind of like Debussy's piano music too. You don't play half of the notes. No, I mean you you play them all, but you play them in such a way that you hear subtlety and washes of color, and most of the time, not all the time. Bavouzet in Pour le Piano. Then we have Children's Corner. Now I need to talk to you a little bit about Children's Corner because I played Children's Corner. In fact, I wanted to study piano specifically to play Children's Corner. That was the piece that absolutely had me fixated on Debussy. And what initially attracted me was that the first number, Dr. Gradus ad Parnassum, is basically a scale study, an arpeggio study, and it doesn't have much for your left hand to do, which made me feel really good about my ability to do it. You just go ba-doom, and then it's great, and just sit there and lean on those notes with your left hand. Later on, it has to do more things, but not a lot. Later on in Children's Corner, your left hand has to do quite a few things, which make it much more difficult. But at the beginning, that's what attracted me. And oh, how I loved that piece and how I drove my family absolutely insane practicing Gollywog's Cakewalk incessantly. But I just adored the piece. I couldn't help myself. I hammered that sucker out time after time after time until people were just screaming at me to stop. And eventually I did stop. In fact, I stopped playing the piano entirely. But boy, it was fun while it lasted. And the performance that was the most disheartening, the one that convinced me that I was wasting my time playing the piano, was Michelangell, the ultimate perfectionist, the pianistic acme of neurotic perfectionism and psychotic glacial coolness and note pristine. Oh God, he was absolutely out of his mind. And this performance of Children's Corner, I just adore. I absolutely adore. Sometimes it doesn't even sound like it's a piano. The playing is so smooth. It's so precise. It's so beautifully gauged and graded and shaped. I mean, there are other performances out there that are probably a little bit more spontaneous, but just as a clinic in what you can do with touch on a keyboard, this is pretty hard to beat. And it comes with images 1 and 2, both sets, and we're going to have to do someone else for the images, but it's in here. Next, we'll talk about the estampes, the estampes, sketches. Now, the estampes are very similar to the image, which we'll talk about in a minute. We'll get back to them. But the one I've chosen is Zoltan Kocsis, a fantastic, one of the great Debussy pianists of the 20th century. He didn't make all that many recordings for Philips. He was a genius of the keyboard, a fabulous conductor, and I'm speaking personally now, one hell of a nice guy. He was really a very, very pleasant guy. I spent some time with him in France, and really just a great, terrific person, an amazing musician. And that's what informs all of his interpretations and what makes them so wonderful, because you get the sense that he could have been composing the music that he's playing. He was that kind of a musician. He was a pianist. And this was on Philips. Now it's on Decca, probably long out of print. He did basically, like most of the Debussy piano music, 4 discs of it. But there will be, I understand, a Zoltan Kocsis box coming at some point from Decca. So hopefully all of this stuff will be coming back. But in the meantime, his performance of the 3 estampes is wonderful. And in fact, let me tell you what they are, because they're just so much fun. Let's see here. Pardon me. It's the next page. There we go. There they are. You get pagodas. I love pagodas. Gorgeous, faux Asian pentatonic music. It's amazing. And then you get La Soirée d'Engrenade, the evening party or thing in Granada. And then one of the Spanish things, all the French composers write about Spain, even if they never go there. And then we have Jardin sous la pluie, Gardens in the Rain, where you hear the soft pitter-patter of droplets falling on the leaves in the garden. Oh, it's so beautiful. Really, it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. And Kocsis is such a great artist when it comes to Debussy. He had such an ear for the color of the music and the fingers to realize all of those colors. Fantastic. So then finally we come to the images, which have been sort of haunting us in some of these other versions. My choice for the image is Ivan Moravec. Now, Moravec was a student of both Gleseking and Michelangell, so you know that he was going to be a terrific Debussy pianist, and so he was. His Debussy was magnificent. He did not do complete sets of most things. He didn't do the complete Préludes, for example, but he did do the complete Image and the complete Estampes, the sketches, the Estampes. They're on here too, believe it or not. Now, the Image come in 2 sets of 3 each. And he's done, like I said, both of them. And this is on Vox, so I can play you a sample. The first book of Images is Reflets dans l'eau, Reflections in the Water. And then there's the Hommage à Rameau. And then I get to play my favorite. It doesn't have a title. It's so wonderful. I mean, we know Debussy could have done one of his typical, Clair de lune dans le temple avec les poissons d'or, the whole deal, you know what I mean. Le parfum de la nuit avec porte-feu de homard américain. It's endless. He had all those flowery titles. Well, this one is just called Mouvement. Movement. That's it. Movement. But that is what this is. It's sort of a toccata, a touch piece in constant notes, a perpetual motion, if you will. And this performance by Ivan Moravec is just gorgeous. It has flashes of light erupting from the steady patter of notes in the background and a central climax where he manages to seemingly broaden out the tempo while at the same time maintaining that constant feeling of motion underneath it all. It is so beautifully done. And here, the whole thing, all 3 minutes of it, here it is, Mouvement from Image Livre, that is book 1. Beautiful, isn't it? And book 2, you get cloche à travers les feuilles, and et la lune descend sur le temple qui fut, and the moon descends over the temple that was. Yeah, okay, Mr. Debussy, anything you say. Some of these titles say, create more questions than they answer, and I am sure that was Debussy's intention. And then finally, Poisson d'Or, goldfish, a fabulous restaurant in the south of France. But anyway, no, that was Le Poêle d'Or. Well, it's the same thing. Fish, a pot, who knows? Okay, so once we've gotten through the Images and the Estampes, we have to do the Préludes. Now, there are 2 books of Préludes, 12 each. And in these 12 Préludes, Debussy has you play the piece, but then when you look at the end, he gives the title, but only after you've heard the music, which maximizes your confusion about what the whole thing represents, because then you've already formed a completely perfect picture in your mind of what you thought you heard, and then you realize that what you heard was not what you heard. Yeah, exactly. And there are really countless superb versions of the Préludes by many, many, many fine artists. Michelangell did them. I mean, the complete sets, and Claudio Arrau did the complete sets, and they are really touchstone pieces for modern pianists, and they all have to do them, but not everyone does them as well as Stephen Osborne on Hyperion. Now, one of the wonderful things about this set is that you get all 12 of them on one disc, which is one very well-filled disc. Let me see if I can find out what the timing of this sucker is. It's really, 77 minutes and 50 seconds. So that's a lot of Debussy on a single disc, and they are absolutely magnificent, intelligent, smart, wonderful. I just can't speak highly enough about these performances. So sensitive, so musical. And the Préludes have the other Debussy piece that I got a chance to play, the only one I could play, which was La Cathédrale Engloutie, the engulfed cathedral, one of my all-time favorites. It's one of everybody's favorites. I mean, I don't have special taste when it comes to this stuff. I like all the popular stuff, and I'm not going to go, hunting for the odd one, although I do love Ce qu'on entend, what's this one called? What the West Wind Said. It's here in French. I mean, it's just ce qu'on, ce qu'on bleu le vent d'ouest, whatever. What the West Wind saw. Is that what it is? Yes. Ce qu'a vu le vent d'ouest. That's what it is. I knew it was something like that. I never get it right. But these are magnificent. And that one, the West thing, it's really hard. It's really, really, really hard. But the Engulfed Cathedral is not so hard, at least not all of it. And it's a thrill to listen to. And Stokowski made a really demented orchestration of it that's quite fun to listen to as well, because it's got a great tam-tam part. And it's absolutely, absolutely gorgeous. So, Stephen Osborne on Hyperion for the Préludes. And last but not least, we have the Études. Now, the Études are late Debussy. They're quite different from all of the other pieces he wrote. There's no impressionist fog here. Although, to tell you the truth, there really isn't much impressionist fog anywhere in Debussy. There should be color. There should be atmosphere. But it should not be foggy. It should be really quite crystalline and clear what he's trying to do. But the Études, as Chopin's Études, are partially didactic. They're supposed to teach you some element of technique, while at the same time being fully realized works of art. And really, they are the greatest works of their type since Chopin's Études. They are absolutely fabulous. And the performance that we must have, which is in this enormous box, so I only have the box, is Uchida. Mitsuko Uchida, an absolutely glorious performance, formerly on Philips, now on Decca, still around. I have to say, there have been few recordings as universally acclaimed as this recording by Uchida. When it was issued, it immediately became the reference, and it has remained so. That doesn't mean there aren't other excellent versions of the Études. There are. There certainly are. But this one has been the standard. And when you hear it, you'll understand why. The entire work, all of the Études, there's 12 of them, plays for about about 45 to 50 minutes. So it really makes a nice program all by itself. They're very, very well varied. They run the entire gamut of modern piano technique, and they are also absolutely marvelous little crystallized gems of expressivity. And Uchida is your person to learn the Etudes. I think really as a reference for these works. And they're not as popular as the other Debussy pieces because they don't sound like early Debussy. They don't have all of that sort of quasi-mystical, romantic, blurry, beautiful. They are lean and muscular and sinewy, and again, somewhat didactic. They treat single issues one after the other, which makes them absolutely fabulous. First of all, if you're a pianist, and second of all, if you have a real interest in following the evolution of Debussy's language as he got older, and because he wrote them just before the end of his life. He wrote them in the mid 1910s, and for the most part, and they are extraordinary pieces. And Uchida's is the one to get. And so that, my friends, is the ideal list of Debussy piano music. Performances that are uniformly strong, solid, brilliant, technically fabulous. There isn't a single weak link anywhere. And I am very interested to hear your choices as well. And if you want to really challenge yourself, break up the double sets, break up the Image into book 1 and book 2 and the Preludes into book 1 and book 2. You can have a very good time adding a few extra recordings in there too if you have personal favorites. I am very curious to see what yours are. In the meantime, keep on listening. Thank you for joining me and take care.